104.7 The Cave. KKLH, Marshfield, Springfield. A proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
Touchdown, Kansas City!
Now, it's time for Ned Talk.
It is a very warm and balmy Sunday afternoon. I know my friend Ned Reynolds enjoys this type of weather. You mowing today?
Did yesterday as well.
Yeah, I did too. I got the I don't know what to call it, the meadowlands that I had in my backyard mowed down. So I got it all taken care of. How's yours? Is it staying in good shape?
Oh, heavens no. It grows at, in incremental proportions as to what we have with the rain, but that happens to be a very accelerated increment. My goodness sake, thick and difficult to mow, and it clumps. That bothers me.
And then you have to rake. It's a full hour of lawn talk today, by the way.
There are some who do. There's moi who does not.
I didn't rake and it killed part of my lawn, so I was quite mad at myself. John Oliver's with us again today. John, how are you?
I'm doing well. I haven't mowed yet, so I'm going to have to take care of that.
You're going to be in trouble, buddy. You're going to have to bail that and get it out to the cattle at some point. Josh Roberts. Josh, how are you?
I'm doing great. I don't mow.
He's got a concrete yard. So.
Yeah, right.
So let's talk about the biggest story in all of, I guess it's the biggest story in all of sports, wouldn't you say? Coach K stepping down?
It's certainly among them. It's among the big stories. Stepping down at the end of this forthcoming season. He'll have had 42 years of coaching at Duke. Great, my gosh. Look at what he's done. 12 Final Four teams, 5 national championships, and including that 3 Olympic gold medals. Hey, the man has achieved everything, almost everything you could possibly do. He's the all-time winningest college basketball coach. More power to him. He'll be 72 years old. No, I beg your pardon, 74 years old. Oh, he's getting up there, isn't he, guys? Do not make any comments here. By the same token, though, he feels that the time has come, and he had his coach in waiting there on the staff with him. And John Shire will do a very good job. I'm convinced he will.
What are your thoughts on this, John?
A lot of times we look at coaches and players and we say, are they retiring at the right time? Did they hang on too long, or did they cut it short? With Coach K, honestly, I think this is perfect timing. As Ned mentioned, he has nothing else to prove. He's got all of the accolades. And yes, he's 74, but based on what we know about most people, and I believe Coach K is in fairly good health, he'll have some time to just enjoy himself and look back on everything he's accomplished. So I think it's the perfect timing for him.
Josh, are you a Coach K fan at all? Or are you one of those haters?
No, well, I was thinking about this while you guys were talking. I've spent years hating Duke, but I've always respected Coach K because of his accomplishments. I mean, you cannot deny that he is one of the greatest college basketball coaches ever. And then to add to that repertoire, he, like Ned said, he's won gold medals with the U.S. Olympic team. I've never been a Duke fan, but I would say that I respect Coach K. And he's had an amazing career.
Excuse me for interrupting you. Keep in mind, when he took over that job in 81, he had a couple of very down years when he started. He didn't start out as a big winner.
Oh, yeah.
But he built the program into what his mentor taught him to believe. And when your mentor is Robert Montgomery Knight, at the U.S. Military Academy, you do have a certain element of discipline about what you do and direction in what you teach. And that's the element that he brought forth at Duke. Yeah, he's had big winners and all that. And I know that kind of irritates some of the fans when somebody's always winning the way Duke has. But by the same token, he's a very bright guy, very bright.
Duke didn't have a great season this year. They were not in the top 25 for most of the season. They didn't do well in the tournament. Maybe he sees the writing on the wall, especially they always have good incoming recruiting classes, but do you think maybe that he was like, yeah, maybe it is time to leave now. I'm not getting the recruits that I need.
Joe, I don't think that's the case. It is in one singular respect. I don't think he's a fan of the portal, the transfer portal.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not going to change. He's not the only one. Yeah, see Roy Williams stepping down at North Carolina. Of course, his is immediate. And I think that transfer portal, I'll tell you who else is not in favor of, and this will come as a surprise, is Calipari. And that's how he recruits. Yep. But look at this, they're losing players. And again, I understand, since we were all young once, how when you look at things at that age, look what I can do over here at Podunk USA. I can be an All-American, all that. The grass is always greener, gang. Always greener.
Hey, my degree's from Podunk USA, so please. He's going to stay on for this year, and his replacement is
John Shire.
No, is that a surprise?
You know, the media would like you to believe it is, but I think the guy was a coach in waiting all along. 7 years he's been an assistant. He was captain of a championship basketball team. Good player, not a great player, but a good player. A guy who has probably been, I'm assuming this anyway, associate head coach and recruiting coordinator.
I thought
he knows what to do. But yeah, the media would have you believe, well, look at all these others. Well, you can say that about anybody, for heaven's sake. Well, there's the problem I have with our writers.
I thought Johnny Dawkins was kind of the man in waiting for that job.
Dawkins and the coach at Harvard, who's a former Duke, Tommy Amaker, and a player like, hey, you can pick out anybody.
Oh, yeah.
But
is Dawkins coaching somewhere else now?
I must admit, I don't know. Yes, he is. He's either Central Florida or South Florida or one of those places.
That's got to be the reason, because Dawkins sat next to him on the bench for years.
He did.
And maybe he just thought, my time's running out to become a head coach, so he went somewhere else, because I think everybody was saying, and of course nobody knows what's really going on inside the organization, that he's the guy as long as he sits in the seat next to Coach K.
Well, Amaker falls into that same circumstance. Yeah. He's coaching at Harvard, and he has had the Harvard team as Ivy League champs in the tournament and won games in the tournament. And this is with limited recruiting, like there is none.
Yeah. Dawkins is at UCF.
That's why he's
Central
Florida.
Central Florida.
Yeah, Central, because he's the counterpart to Coach Abe.
Yes.
I think Grant Hill should be the next Duke coach.
Grant Hill is another great product from down there, but I don't think he wants to get into coaching. He has too much of a deal with the media.
Yeah. Christian Leitner.
Nope.
There's no way. That's a divisive figure there.
Well, we've lost a couple of big college basketball coaches in the last month or so. Roy Williams and Coach K. And that's going to change the complete face of the UNC Duke rivalry.
And the ACC period, because these are two of the dominant teams in that conference. And it will, at least for now, change the look at how things go. But by the same token, when you take a look at the ACC and the makeup of those teams and the schools in that conference, you have a very good level of athleticism in football, in basketball, and in baseball. They've had national champs down there as well. So when you take a look at the overall scope of things, sure, the faces will change, but I don't think the level of athleticism will.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, your local live sports talk show. We're with Ned Reynolds, Josh Roberts, John Oliver. I'm Joe Westen, and we're talking about Coach K. He's retired. Does that put Calipari at the top of the heap now, or who are you looking at? I know Bill Self probably goes into that category too, but Bill Self's probably got some unhappy times ahead of him here.
Well, there's another one who you're overlooking is Rick Pitino.
Yeah, Pitino. Well, yeah,
where is Pitino right now?
Iona.
In prison?
No. That's where he's coaching the Iona Gales.
Yes, that's right.
And he had them in the tournament this year.
Yeah. Oh, that's right, yeah.
He has a shaky reputation. Understand that. Not necessarily from a recruiting standpoint, but just shaky, period. But he is a brilliant individual.
He is, yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's a great coach.
I think you're overlooking one name, too, that's kind of the dark horse, Mark Few.
Yeah, Few.
Mark Few.
Gonzaga has been a powerhouse for many years now.
He's just not a name that trips off your tongue, though.
It's not, but I think he will be.
Powerhouse?
Yeah.
Well, Gonzaga has been. Yeah, he's right about that.
National champs, 3 years ago? Or runner-up to national champs 3 years ago. Missed out on it. Few was an assistant coach who was elevated to the head coaching position. I think this is the only job he's ever had, and he likes it. One of the reasons that the name doesn't fall off is because of their location.
Yes.
Spokane, Washington, you just don't get a lot of publicity from out of there.
So let's stop and talk about the three guys that we mentioned being at the top of the heap: Calipari, Pitino. This is all hard to say. Try to say three times fast. Self, Calipari, Pitino. All three of them have shaky reputations. This is what's at the top of our coaching heap in college basketball right now. When you look at Roy Williams and Coach K, neither one of them had shaky reputations. What's your thoughts?
Well, you make a very good point. Again, though, what constitutes a shaky reputation? Pitino's case is more, well, it's both recruiting and in social behavior. Calipari is more from the method in which he coached and recruited. It's not necessarily one of illegality. As a matter of fact, I have a very close friend who told me, you guys would know, a former NCAA employee who said he's never met anybody who knows the rule book better than John Calipari. He studied it. He knew every single little subtle venue that he could take, and he wasn't doing anything wrong. It was everything he could possibly do. So, again, I think it probably the definition of shaky reputation. Same with Self at Kansas. So far, he's escaped. All we've had are the suggestions that their team is going to be penalized, whereas the coach at Arizona, who blatantly paid his players on the telephone. Hey, I'll give him $100,000 to come here. That's not going to make it, gang. And he's out now, and some of the others as well. I'll tell you, the one who does escape more than anything else is the coach at Auburn. That guy has circumvented every kind of... Jim
Boeheim?
No, Boeheim's Syracuse.
No. Syracuse, sorry.
No, the Auburn coach was at Iowa now. I've forgotten his name. Why have I blown it? Bruce Pearl.
Bruce Pearl, yeah. Bruce Pearl.
He has.
Tennessee. Oh, yeah, he was at Tennessee, too. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he was at Tennessee when the Bears played them down there. Yes. Our first telecast on KY3. Stuckey and I were down there. And Pearl had been here at Hammond Center as the coach at Wisconsin Milwaukee when they were in a tournament. Heck, they won the thing down here. They won our holiday tournament. He's a very good coach. Recruiting very much in question, and then one of these, I think the assistant coach fell on the sword for him when he got nailed by the FBI for illegal bribes. And Pearl, I don't know anything about this at all. Now I'll have to fire that man. Right. Fire him and pay him off. Yeah, yes. Okay.
Well, if I can add a bit of reality to this situation too, all of these coaches have been accused of improper benefits, improper recruiting. I honestly think, and I've had conversations with student athletes at many schools where you wouldn't think this was going on. I think it goes on everywhere.
John, it does.
I think we're so ignorant to believe that any program is squeaky clean of this. There will always be boosters. There will always be folks with money, and there are always improper benefits being given out. And I'm going to honestly say that's at any school.
Roll Tide, roll.
I'm not naive to believe that it doesn't happen everywhere, but these guys have kind of, been caught with their hand in the cookie jar.
Well, and that's the thing, you cross the wrong booster or person, and that gets into the national media. If you're on a good relationship with the folks that are quote unquote buttering your bread, then that may never come out, and it may not, hit that level.
Isn't it really, when you think about it, the unwritten rule and law of all of athletics? You'll do anything to get ahead.
Absolutely.
Hey, look, I'm going to bring up another one that'll rankle our host, our producer over here. Look at it in baseball. The sign stealing with the Houston Astros.
Yep.
Why did it happen to them? Because they got caught.
Right.
Come on.
Right, exactly.
Well, everybody's been doing it.
Yeah, well, they've been doing it. They went to a whole new level, too.
They did.
That's true.
Admittedly, they did, and that's why they got caught. But everybody's doing it. Come
Absolutely.
on, it's been going on since 1901.
Well, let me say, if everybody jumped off a bridge, Ned, would you jump off a bridge, too?
It does not condone the fact, but what it does say is you show me an athletic team that is not looking at every angle in getting ahead and winning, and I'll show you a loser.
When I was in high school, there was a guy that I went to school with. His name is Gary Locke, great wide receiver for Glendale. He wore tearaway jerseys. He was a great receiver, but those jerseys that if a defender grabbed onto the jersey, it was gone.
No, that was allowed.
Yeah, it was, and the Glendale team was known for casting up too, putting casts on their players at that time. So I mean, and John and I have coached, and we've looked at teams in Little League that are trying to get an edge whichever way that they can.
Absolutely.
But eventually, you have to be a leader of men, have to be a leader of people, a leader of,
It's all about integrity at some point.
Yeah, it is. And when you look at Coach K, he has a lot of integrity. Whether his hand was in the cookie jar or not, I'm sure that it probably was over the years. But he's got that reputation of integrity. And I think that when you look at the guys that are at the top of the heap right now, and Boeheim's had some other issues. He's a guy that I left out, but he's had other issues too. Does that make a statement about where we're at in college athletics?
No, because it's going on forever. And is it right? No, it probably isn't right if you lived in a pluperfect society. That's Andrew
Buckbinder, yep.
on TV. I'll give him some grief about that. Anyway, but it's human nature to try to use your ingenuity and your best abilities to get ahead and win, because we are a winning society. Does it necessarily condone what they do? No. And they really can't condone it if they get caught. Jim Boeheim's an outstanding coach.
Yes.
He's a very good X's and O's coach. He succeeded Roy Danforth at Syracuse, who was also a great X's and O's coach. Krzyzewski, same situation. The ones who don't win are the ones who don't deserve to win. They don't know what they're doing out there, and there are a multitude of them.
What's the guy? I can't think of it. Tom at Michigan.
Izzo?
Tom Izzo. He's another great coach.
Michigan State.
Oh my gosh, Michigan State. He'd be up in that echelon for me as well.
A great coach there. So I guess there's some names that we still look at as guys with integrity that are still at the top.
John Wooden. John Wooden at UCLA.
Well, I'm talking about guys that are actually coaching right now and trying to look at the comparison of what we're losing to what we're being left with.
But Joe, that's not... To me, anyway, that's relatively recent history, what UCLA did, 10 of 12 national championships. How do you achieve that? Well, John Wooden was Mr. Grandfather out there coaching. He did not have great success in his first years. He was at Indiana State. That's where he got his education, came out there and took the UCLA program. They weren't great to begin with. Then gradually they built the program up, and you saw what happened, 10 national championships in 12 years. How did he do that? Did he bend the rules? How do you get a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? How do you get a Bill Walton, a Sidney Wicks, some of these great players who performed out there? Did you have to bend the rules? Hey, it doesn't necessarily work both ways. You're out there to win.
Right. And around the topic of bending the rules, let me just make this analogy, too. I can't imagine how much people would be up in arms if, say we look at a company like Amazon, a multi-billion-dollar company that rakes in money. And what they did is they paid all of their workers the complete minimum wage with no benefits. That's what the NCAA is right now. Right. Until athletes are compensated for this multi-billion-dollar enterprise, you're going to see improper benefits being given out.
Well, Amazon paid, I think it was $0 in federal taxes.
And that's a whole nother issue. But
we got an army of accountants looking at every tax code and being able to go, well, I can do this, or we can do this, and then, get it down to zero.
Right.
When I had to pay.
Me too. I know. Yeah.
Makes you kind of resentful.
It's every walk of life. There are ways around it, but we're not going to see coaches or organizations with clean records until that's amended for the NCAA.
Yeah, there are ways around not paying your taxes. I need to listen to some of them.
We need to hire an army of accountants. How about that? That's the best.
Which, in fact, will pay for the taxes.
Exactly. You're just keeping all the money in-house rather than giving it to the government. You're listening to Ned Talk. We're on 104.7 The Cave. We're talking about all sorts of sports things, so hang around with us.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave. A proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
Hello. How are you? Hope you're having a good Sunday. Joe Westen with Ned Reynolds, Josh Roberts, John Oliver. We're talking sports. We talked about Coach K. Let's talk about what's going on in the rest of sports. Let's start with the French Open because you're a big tennis guy.
I
play
am,
tennis.
And the guy who is my icon, my the guy I root for. You're not supposed to do that in the media, but I love Roger Federer playing. He turns 40, I think, in a couple of weeks. Had this monstrous match last night into the early morning hours of today, and he won the thing and then withdrew. He said, "Nope, I'm not going to be able to do this on a consistent basis." Now, he is playing clay where he's not really at his best, but you have Wimbledon coming up here in another couple, about a month and a half or so, and I think he wants to be in that, and as well as the U.S. Open, and his knee may not be back in great shape. The other one's Serena Williams, speaking of not in great shape, and she gets beaten in the fourth round at the French Open. So two of the icons, the biggest names in the game, are now out of it. It leads you to believe, too, that the parity in tennis is reaching a certain point now, and unfortunately for us, it's more on an international basis than it is the domestic level of tennis. I feel like that's fallen off a little bit because of the various focus that we have on other sports. But it's still such a great game, and these are two of the iconic athletes.
Yeah, it's hard to get behind and root for a tennis player. There's not the upper level that there once was in tennis, and I think Federer and that group of guys are kind of the last line for that.
Well, you do have Djokovic, who is in and of himself a very, very fine. Well, he's the number one player in the world. He can still do it. Rafael Nadal can. Yep. These are guys who are still in their early 30s, and here's Federer, who is 40, and it does catch up with you after a while.
I admit there was a time when I could tell you the top 10 men and women's tennis players
good for
at
you.
any time, but that hasn't been for many years because it seems like there is a lot of parity, Ned. You don't have the ones that are dominating. You don't have the same, semifinals every tournament like we used to see.
It used to be that way. That's exactly right. And you had the Andre Agassi's in there and the kid from UCLA who was so very good. You just had very fine regiment of players who were on there, but that regiment has since begun to dissolve a little bit, and I think a lot of it's because of our focuses on other sports.
Right.
You remember back at the McEnroe Borg Connors days, and even Chris Everett and the women's league,
Martina Navratilova, and people like that.
Steffi
and that was Steffi Graf is another one. Steffi Graf is
Chris Everett.
Can't think of his name. What's his name from
Pete Sampras?
Not Sampras, but the guy from Germany.
Boris Becker.
Boris Becker, yeah.
Jimmy Connors, if we're going back a little way. Michael Chang.
Connors, Michael Chang.
I mean, these are all superb tennis players.
And they are also living very well, too, because a lot of them have parlayed that tennis career into teaching and professional aspects of things. Chang, I think Chang is the coach at maybe UCLA, if I'm not mistaken, or one of the coaches, one of the college coaches out there, and does a very good job. It's had championship level teams. And the ladies, same thing with the ladies. Steffi, of course, is married to Andre Agassi, and they live out in Vegas, and I think they probably live very well out in Vegas.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
Martina Hingis, Chris Everett.
Everett is on the air here, and Hingis, I think it went back to her native land, I think Croatia, if I'm not mistaken. And
Chris Everett was an awesome quarterback for the Rams, too, at one time.
Take it easy.
Very good.
Nice Jim Rome reference there, huh? Yeah, remember that.
Say that one more time, I'll come across the table, Joe.
And he did.
Yep. It was pretty funny. Who hasn't wanted to go across the table at Jim Rome?
Very few. Very few people.
Rome, he's calmed down a little bit.
He has.
But his initial take on doing things, I don't agree with that policy of raising hell and carrying on and irritating people. It just does not work.
What we see from guys like Colin Cowherd now
is another one,
who will have a completely different opinion week to week. Viewership.
That's just kind of the nature of the beast. It is the way that it is.
Some it is. Yeah. With some.
With most.
I disagree. I don't think it's
some NFL news. Julio Jones looks like he is going to be traded, and the rumor is the Titans will get Julio Jones. Ned, what do you think about that?
Well, it certainly helps Tennessee. I'm anxious to see. Now, that has to be a trade. That's not a free agency circumstance. I'm anxious to see what they give up to get Jones. I'm quite sure that's why the Chiefs did not get into any extensive negotiations on him, because they have to give up a lot. And furthermore, they have a pretty good receiving core on their own. But with Tennessee, I think that's a very good fit. It also makes them assuming that Julio Jones can still play at the same level that he has. What's he been in the league now? 4 years, 4 or 5 years?
Jones has been in the league about 8 years, I think.
Is it that long now?
He's been here a while.
Well, okay. Can he sustain that kind of professional level that he's played and the kind of all-star level that he's played? If he can, big get for Tennessee.
I think it's a big reward, get for them. I mean, you look at, of course, Derrick Henry goes without saying. He's the number one rusher in
Why
football.
is it both these guys are Alabama? Come on, man. What is it?
But yeah, pairing A.J. Brown is a very talented receiver for the Titans. Pairing him with another weapon like Julio Jones has the potential to be a pretty devastating offense for them.
Who's their quarterback?
Ryan Tannehill.
Oh.
Now, see, you cast doubts about Tannehill, but he can play.
He can.
Given an offensive line, he's as good as any of the other quarterbacks, and all he has to do is get the ball to those guys.
Do they have an offensive line?
That's just it.
Remains to be seen.
Do they have an O-line?
They have a pretty decent one, I thought, last season. That was one of their strong points.
It did well.
We haven't heard anything about Aaron Rodgers yet. Apparently, this is a Mexican standoff, more or less.
Right.
To Rodgers.
A little bit. And a story came out today that the Packers are trying to smooth things over. Now, we've talked about this as recent, or as far back, I should say, as about a month and a half ago. I'm of the opinion that he won't leave. I've said that before. He's going to stay with the Packers. Number one, because to deal him, you have to trade him and trade a huge contract.
Yeah.
Who's going to do that, number one? And number two, is this really nothing more than a personality conflict with one of the key individuals? You can have those things in life. We all do somewhere along the line. Hey, you get that smoothed over. This guy's still pretty doggone good. And he can play the game, and he will make the Packers. I say he stays.
This is going to be an unpopular opinion, I think, especially with younger listeners and younger sports fans.
There are none, so don't worry about that.
Are there any?
We talked about the transfer portal earlier, Ned, and then I see situations like Aaron Rodgers and I see situations like James Harden in the NBA. I guess I come from the school of thought, if you sign a contract, you need to fulfill that contract. I can't tell my job tomorrow that I am holding out until another company bids for my services and they need to meet my demands. So I think at some point, sports in general, we've gotten away from what I consider loyalty to a lot of these situations. And I think contracts are contracts. I mean, how many times now do we see a person fulfill their contract?
Well, in the NFL, a contract is no more than it's just a piece of paper.
Right.
I mean, it's nothing. I mean, Patrick Mahomes signed that contract with the Chiefs, and everybody goes, wow, $500 million. Look at this, blah, blah, blah. If something happens to him tomorrow, it's gone. He doesn't get the money.
Right.
He's got a lot of money. Don't weep for him by any stretch of imagination. But don't look at players and say they're the problem with this when it's on both sides that this happens.
I'm not putting the owners beyond reproach.
There's no loyalty in sports. You can forget that.
And I think that's the problem with it trickling down to the NCAA, because we're already instilling that, I'm scoring 16 points a game, but this other guy's playing ahead of me. I'm going into the transfer portal.
Yeah.
I don't like that. It's taking your ball and going home.
I'm right with you. I don't like it either. I am going to debate that now. With every circumstance, there is an exception. I think the loyalty has gone, but there is one exception, and I love this. Yadier Molina.
Oh my gosh,
the longest serving catcher in baseball history, playing with the same team, and that says to me an awful lot. You know what he did this year? He signed a 1-year contract for $9 million. $9 million, that's a lot of money. I don't give a damn what anybody sends, a lot of money. But compared to what some of these others are making, it's peanuts. And yet he wanted to fulfill his role with the Cardinals. Right. I love that. Generally speaking, though, you guys are absolutely right. There is that loyalty factor is gone.
Yeah. There's a lot of bean counters on both sides, too, that sit and look at that and they go, well, I can make $9 million with the Cardinals, and then I can make X number of dollars marketing, which is the same thing when you see a team hold on to an older player. I mean, one of the reasons why I think there's a lot of ego. Oh, I'm going to expose something here, guys. There's a lot of ego in sports. Ooh, wow. I don't know if you guys were aware of that.
Unbelievable.
A lot of ego in sports, and it happens at all levels with managers and general managers and stuff. And there was a time in my favorite team's organization when one of the biggest egos was Brian Cashman.
Oh,
he didn't like Derek Jeter. Mm-hmm. He wanted to let Derek Jeter go, but they looked at the dollars that he brings into the club just by being Derek Jeter.
Right.
And then they start to weigh that out and go, okay, we can make this amount of money off of him and pay him this much, and we're still coming out ahead.
And here's something that doesn't get brought up enough in situations. You brought up Yadier Molina, Ned. People, I think, your layman fan doesn't realize the behind the scenes on that. I hear comments like, well, if Molina really wanted to play for the Cardinals, he'd take $500,000. He's got enough money. People have to realize the Players Association in all of these sports will not allow that to happen.
Yeah.
Will not.
You have to set a minimum salary. Otherwise, you're handcuffing other people because it's a negotiating or a tactic for those teams. Okay, so JT Realmuto, you want $10 million a year? Molina signed for $500,000. We're not going to do that. So it's all a big give and take.
It is, and you're absolutely right. The Players Association, under the guise of being the overall governing agency, which they are for the players, really does operate that way. Yes. They control a lot of what those players are getting paid. That's 100% correct.
Yeah, well, and Scott Boras does too.
Well, yeah, the agent. Let's not talk about Scott Boras.
Can't deny the agent. How about? Do you guys remember the? I think it was Major League, where the guys walking down. I loved it. It's a great scene. The manager, forgotten the actor's name now, and the pitcher. Well, I don't have to do that. It's not in my contract. I said, let me see it. He grabs the contract, and what he did on that
urinates
contract. That's how it operates.
If you ever watch the Los Angeles Angels of California and Anaheim play, and notice in the background they have field level seats, and Scott Boras is always always standing behind home plate. We're going to talk. What were we talking about before we went on the air? What was that? We had a really great conversation before we went on the air. And
we were talking about the Bob Brenly situation.
Bob Brenly. No, we were talking about something else. We're not going to go there. Okay. We're not going to go there. But we'll have a great conversation. So we want you to stick around. I've stumped 3 people at once, including myself in that group. So it's Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
We came up with what our roundtable discussion will be. It's about athletics and crowd interaction. But I first wanted to talk about this story really quick, and I do have to pass along a thank you to Mike Schilt, because he is the one that has caused this probably to happen with his dirty little secret press conference.
Oh, no.
Pitchers will now be checked twice during the course of a start for foreign substances while they pitch. So Major League Baseball is going to try to police this action. Your thoughts, Ned?
Been going on for years, guys. Going on for years. It's all what we talked about earlier. It's that finite way of finding the winning edge. Is it legal? Of course not. I remember the first interview I had at KY3 54 years ago with the great Elwyn Preacher Rowe from West Plains. Mm-hmm. Sports Illustrated the year before had done an article on how the ball, he had doctored the ball. And I said, Preacher, did that happen? Oh, of course it happened. And he talked about how he'd take his fingernails and groove the baseball for the relief pitcher coming in. Hey, it happens. Mm-hmm. Now, does baseball have to crack down on it? Probably, but how long will that crackdown last? Who knows? Not very.
Is this going to go the same route as the batters getting in the box and hitting that they were supposed to police a few years back, and they have not really policed that much?
Yep. This is an idiotic witch hunt.
Don't you ever see them tell them to get in the box anymore? You did that first season, but this is kind of strange.
Well, I mean, we've never had a problem with this. Let's start measuring and where the pine tar ends on the bat. I've never seen anything bad come out of that.
Well, you know the reason why that rule's in place, don't you? The Twins owner was notoriously cheap, okay? Mm-hmm. So he said Pine Tar had to be a certain distance on the bat because too much of it was getting on the balls and he couldn't reuse the balls.
Oh, my
That
gosh.
is the reason
I never
why
knew that was the
that's the reason why that rule's in place. Pine Tar doesn't do anything to help you hit.
Does nothing to accelerate the ball or anything like that.
Joe, I feel like this is a result of the hitting not being as prevalent as Major League Baseball wants it to be this season. Yeah. They're blaming it on something, and it's, the pitchers are doctoring the ball. So we got to crack down on that so they can't doctor the ball anymore so that we get more home runs and more base hits and more high-scoring games.
I'm going to pull a John Oliver and say this is not going to sit very well with the younger viewers out there, but I love a well-pitched game.
I do, too.
They go by really quickly, and when you see a guy that's really on, there's nothing better in baseball.
I don't want to see 4.5 ERAs winning the Cy Young. I think you have to help both sides, and I'm tired of this rallying cry. Anytime offense is down, why can't it just be pitching is better this year?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Because chicks dig the long ball.
Well, I know. Yeah, thanks, Greg Maddux. But still, I know I have a pitcher's mentality when I talk about this, and I cannot fathom them checking twice a game.
I think that every Cardinals pitcher should be checked at least 4 times during a game because Mike Schilt has caused this situation.
I think every inning.
Are they going to go through their hair? Because a lot of them put it in their hair. You see them,
that's all you're going to see when they check them. They're just going to hide it better. I mean, come on.
So the pitcher the other day, was it yesterday or the day before, a pitcher had these long, decorated dreadlocks. Don't you know he had Vaseline on the end? He's reaching back there all the time.
Yeah. Well,
come on.
One of my favorite things, Ned, and you're seeing it in college and now you're seeing it in the major leagues, there are certain pitchers now that will, before they throw a baseball, they will rub their fingers on their wrist and the palm of their glove. And the only reason they're doing it is to make the hitter think they're putting something on the ball. It's to get in their head.
Sure.
Well, they are putting something on the ball.
Yeah,
and then
but
on
I'm
top
saying
of it, they are.
Guys that aren't are doing it.
Yeah. I mean,
just to try to get in their head.
It's, scuffing's where I draw the line at because that's where, that's where you put a mark on the ball, you get your fingernail in there.
You're altering the ball
You're altering the ball at that point. But as far as putting something on the ball, I just, what's the big deal? Let's just move on with something.
Stupid witch hunt.
We talked about this before we went on the air, and we thought it was a really good conversation, so we thought we'd share it with you guys. It's about athletics, and, we saw an event that happened where, I guess in Philly, where a player was assaulted with popcorn. And popcorn. There was an article in USA Today that said, well, this is part of the downfall of our society. But this has gone on for years.
Many, many years.
And in Philadelphia forever.
Right, Philadelphia. I mean, it's now that again, don't understand, not condoning that sort of thing, but my gosh, I was there. Guys, you always hear about people being there. I was there the day that Santa Claus was booed. And people were throwing snowballs. It's late game. Philadelphia's way out of the National Football League playoff scene and all that. And the fans are in an ugly mood to begin with, which they usually are.
Right.
And I told you guys about my relative who was involved in the battery throwing at J.D. Drew. And he was like, people, it isn't to be condoned, no. But is it the downfall of society? Hell no. It's been going on forever.
In Philadelphia, there was a guy at the Constitutional Convention that yelled at John Hancock. You call that a signature? Right. And then threw beer on him. Yeah. So, I mean, in Philly, it happens. But, it happens everywhere. It happens at Yankee Stadium. It happens in Boston. It happens, these are places that Philly's got a bad rap. I will grant it that. But this is something that's gone on for years in sports. It's just part of it.
Rabid fans. They're fans who want their team to win. That the incident in Washington where the kid tried to run on the court and the security guard tackled him. Come on, it goes on all the time. But my favorite part of that, it was the announcer describing it on TV.
Yeah, doing the play-by-play.
He says, whoa, boy, the Redskins could really, I can't say that.
No, this is another one of those things. You've got to draw the line somewhere on what you want sports to be. For fans to be involved, as I'm looking at the women's softball game we're watching right now, Major League Baseball, softball, having.
I don't know we should have admitted to
Well,
that.
you know.
We're changing the channel, by the way.
So we installed these nets to prevent injuries. And this isn't going to be a popular opinion either. Basically, to help people who aren't paying attention to the game, who are on their cell phones.
Precisely what it is.
I'm going to be honest when I say that. So here's what you can do: if the players don't want popcorn thrown on them, then you've got to block off the fans with plexiglass like they do in hockey. If you don't want to hear taunts from the fans, find another occupation, because that is going to be there forever. And you as a professional need to be able to keep your cool. If it's severe, go to one of the security personnel and have the fan removed. Don't interact back and forth with them. Don't take matters into your own hands. It's simple common sense that is not being used at this stage.
Well, I also think it's adrenaline and it's heat of the moment.
Machismo.
And machismo and bravado. I mean, you know, the whole popcorn thing cracks me up because we were talking, you know, when the U.S. men's soccer team goes to play in Mexico at the Estadio Azteca, the fans throw bags of urine at them.
Yes.
Gross.
Urine, not popcorn. So come on. Popcorn's not going to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
Well, beer's commonly thrown in sports.
Absolutely.
Yeah, all the
And
time.
Again, as Ned said, I don't condone this, but it's been going on for a long time. And there have been ugly, ugly situations with it. If you go back to when Roger Maris was in the home run chase, the big doll of the babe being thrown and then the seat following being thrown onto the field to where they had to delay a game. Those sort of things have happened.
How about the incident with the Dallas Mavericks about, I'm going to say 8 or 9 or 10 years ago, had a little confrontation with the referee and the players, and the owner, Mark Cuban, goes out on the court. Come on, people.
Inexcusable.
It is.
I'll say this. It's part of what we love and hate about sports. I mean, when we see, you know, last year KU had a big fight on the court.
Oh, my gosh.
And it was a really unpleasant thing. But there's a part of us that loves that kind of interaction of sports. I mean, some of my favorite stories from baseball from growing up are George Brett, Craig Nettles going at each other, Carlton Fisk and Thurman Munson
Absolutely.
throwing down when the teams just did not like each other. I mean, they can say it, but they probably go to dinner, a lot of them these days.
Oh, of course.
And those days they didn't.
No.
They didn't like each other. And I think that's part of the sport that we enjoy. It creates more conversation.
It is called the passion of what the athletic event is all about, and that is how you perceive any kind of sports. If the athletes don't have that passion, then why should the fans have
Exactly.
anything? And the vice versa works. If the fans have it, the athletes are going to pick up for it. That's how athletics is generated. That's what it's all about. Does it mean you misbehave? Of course not.
No.
But is it going to happen? Yes. And does it represent the degradation of our society? What a lot of balderdash. That's media stuff.
We've talked about this before, too. I mean, sports has a way of policing itself.
Yes.
Fans have a way of policing themselves. If
They
you
do.
said somebody that's out of control, then report them.
And
get them out of there.
It happened in, I think, 2 years ago, one of the major NCAA events where some fans, an absolute knucklehead, is sitting there with one of those
laser
lights
pointers.
and blinking. Well, hell, when they stopped the game to find out, those him right there, and they pointed him out
It
and they got
polices
rid of the
itself. And so that we don't put all of the players at fault on this, a lot of people are going to be too young to remember these situations. But what about when Rick Monday ran and saved the flag from being burned? What about Jim Rice when the small child was beamed with a line drive in the stands? He picked the child up and ran them to medical personnel.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
There are situations where players go above and beyond to protect the fans.
There's knuckleheads on both sides.
Absolutely.
I mean, and anytime you get a large group of people together, I mean, we've been to concerts, I've been to movies where people acted like a knucklehead.
Yes, I have to.
Anytime that there's adult beverages involved too, gosh, that equals knucklehead every time.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, really, just something out of control.
For the amateur, maybe.
Yes.
For the amateur.
Yes.
Well, we'll wrap up our Ned Talk and talk about what we're going to watch this afternoon in sports right here on 104.7 The Cave.
Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave. a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
Brought him in from Boca to the score a cool 17.
You know we're on the air, by the way. Yeah, we are.
I'm talking about I had the great pleasure of telecasting a record-setting performance last night. I can't tell you how thrilled we are.
Did you go see Herschel Walker?
Herschel Walker?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in town.
Oh, I didn't know he was in town.
Yeah, he was in town Friday night.
Did not know that.
I thought for sure. I had a couple of buddies who went. I thought for sure I should say hi to Ned while you're there.
What was he here for?
Just giving a talk.
Oh, okay.
Really?
You guys have to talk into the microphone while you do the show too. By the way,
Yeah, that helps. It does help.
So yeah, Herschel Walker was here.
Had no idea he was here.
One of the guys that went, Michael Vincent, wants me to remind you, he still would like a Reds card from you.
If I have one.
If you have one, you
The
would very
reason I
much
might
like to.
not have one is most of them got destroyed.
I know that's a national tragedy right
It
there.
is.
It is a national tragedy. So what are you going to watch in sports this afternoon, Ned? Or you
Well,
just,
I would watch the Cardinals if I had them on my system, but I do not, so I'll have to use
Gosh
my
darn it.
cell phone.
Can't we get this fixed to somebody out there in Fox Sports Midwest?
I'm not sure I want it fixed. Probably maybe watch a little bit of the activities, but I have some work to do outside today, assuming the weather's going to be all right.
You're a gardener guy, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. For flowers, not vegetables.
Okay. What about you, John? Are you a gardener guy?
No, no, not at all. So yeah, I'll probably take it easy. As you said, it's hard to watch the Cardinals game. I might listen. Hope they stop dropping like flies, and I'll just pretty much take it easy today, Joe.
Yeah. What about you, Josh? Are you going
Hockey.
to take hockey?
Yeah.
Is hockey still going
Yeah,
on?
the playoffs
Oh yeah,
are in full
that's
swing.
right.
My Montreal Canadiens are up 2-0 on the Winnipeg Jets, and now they got at least 2 or 3 games in Montreal. So I'm hoping they sweep.
That should be nice. Patrick Mahomes, just want to mention this too before we wrap up today's show, has apparently done well from his surgery with turf toe and plans on being back. And he's talking about a 20-0 season.
I've heard him say
That's
that.
his fondest desire is an undefeated season, which is just really not very realistic at all. But it's nice to talk about and not impossible. Sure. But I wonder a little bit about that. The Chiefs coming on so strong about how well he's recovered from his injury. Mm-hmm. Guys, this was anytime you have surgery on a turf toe, that is a significant circumstance. Mm-hmm. Please, Patrick, don't come back too fast. Take it easy. Make sure that the toe is healed completely. Have the orthopedic surgeons looking it over. He comes back too strong and does that again. Oh, my.
We're going to be able to ask questions about that to Mitch Holtis coming up here very shortly.
July 22nd is when Holtis will be here. We'll have it at the Riff, and it'll be fun. Of course, Mike the intern will be there. Yours truly and Art Haynes will be there as well. Well, it's not a speech. He comes in, Holtis, and he's very, very good at this. The Riff is the little adjunct to Rock Coffee or
Classic Rock Coffee.
Classic Rock Coffee. Uh-huh.
And it's the auditorium out there. It's very nice. They can probably get 150, 200 people in there. It's very good. The acoustics are great. Small stage, and Mitch sits up there. He's flanked by either one of us, and we pelt him with questions. He doesn't know what we're going to ask him.
Nice.
And he's very good at freelancing. And he'll give his discussion for about 35, 40 minutes, somewhere around there. It's a very good session, and the public's invited. We'd love to have you all down there.
Yeah, I think tickets are they on sale? Or I would give you all the information for this, but my computer crapped out on me just as we were starting to talk about this. So I turned it over to Ned really quickly and say, Ned, what do you know about this? And I still don't have the information, but you can find out information about it online at 1047thecave.com. I've been to, I think, 3 of these now. And they're a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And Mitch Holtis knows more about the Chiefs than just about anybody outside of Andy Reid. And he can just, the thing that amazed me is that somebody could ask, well, what about the third string linebacker that came out of Bowling Green University, and 20 minutes worth of information that you're just blown away by because he knows what he's talking about. The event's a lot of fun. So, again, find all the information online at 1047thecave.com. Listen to Ned Reynolds tomorrow morning right here on 104.7 The Cave with Mike the Intern. John, will you be back with us next week?
I will be.
All right. John will be back with us. Josh cannot be with us
No, I'll
next
be
week.
here next week.
Will you be here next week?
Yes, it'll be the week after that I can't make it.
Okay. Well, John, you'll be here for the next 2 weeks. Jake will be with us in a couple of weeks. It's Ned Talk. Everybody have a great Sunday. And if you're just tuning in, wanting your crazy rock and roll music, you can listen to us as a podcast online through 1047thecave.com or on the Cave app or wherever you get your podcast at. Thanks to Scott Meyer, Mike the intern, Corbin Campbell. We'll see you next week.